Hello, here for another XRL League race here at Suzuka in Japan. You might notice I'm starting in 12th place, and that was because of an incident with Riotoustag in qualifying, where I ended up with a 10th place grid penalty after qualifying in second, which was really frustrating because unfortunately I didn't have my capture card plugged in, so I couldn't show you that incident, which I believe was Riotous's fault, as he ended up blocking me on prime tyres in the final sector on my quickest lap of qualifying. But as you saw, Harry D was got pole, started in first, and I'm second to last with a Czar Reactions just behind me. But I'm looking to move forward and try and get somewhere around a podium sort of position in this race is my target. As the lights start to come on now, 4 lights, 5 lights, and away we go, pretty quick. And it looks like Craig Senna got a bit of a slow start. Sirlane's on prime, so we're going to have a look up the inside into turn 1. But we're not really gaining enough, I don't think, so we're just going to back out a little bit. And there's contact with Craig Senna there. Just going to not go straight onto the track to avoid an unsafe release. But looking at the mini-map, Craig had just backed off a bit, so I rejoined the track. There's a bit of a gap now to Sirlane. It's not the best start really to try and get this podium finish I'm looking for. But I'm sure I'll catch right up to the back of these cars here, as the pace difference in qualifying seems to be quite large. The gap between first and second, Harry D got a 135.9, I got a 36.5, and I think third was about half a second off my pace. As we just knocked the back of Sirlane, I think he broke a bit early for this collision right here between Riotoustag and Ewan. I think Riotus was, it was decided it was his fault for the incident there, as we got passed by Craig Senna as well from after that incident, after we gave Riotus a bit of a poke up the back. So we haven't gained any places, as Craig is lagging a little bit in front of us, which is a bit off-putting, so we're going to have to watch it in case his car isn't where we expect it to be, so we have to be careful for overtaking moves. We are gaining on him on the back straight here. Don't really want to overtake through 130R. He goes wide and then appears straight back on the track again, which is not really. Having to avoid a cut there, but we get a pretty decent shoot out of here. Sirlane's on prime, so he's not going to get best traction. And we're going to go past Craig Senna as well. Can we get past him into turn 1? We'll be able to do it. It looks like we're getting past him. I'm just going to brake nicely. Going a bit too deep though, bit too deep here. And Craig Senna is going to have room on the outside. Need to leave him room on this left-hander for the right-hander there. Craig is right alongside us, no contact, bit of contact there. Keeping the inside, keeping it tight, giving him room again. Looking in the mirror, and he's backed off a bit, so closing the door on him. And that was quite a nice few corners with Craig there, so congrats for a bit of nice racing there from Craig. But again, we need to close this gap down to the cars ahead. So it has been a pretty slow start really to the race. Not really the start I was looking for. Lost quite a lot of time in the first lap. But Riotus, his pace seemed to be fairly slow, race pace and qualifying pace. So I'm pretty confident we'll be able to get onto the back of Riotus in not too long. And I do have to say that my pace, I was pretty annoyed with my pace in the race, as I was about a second off the pace throughout the whole race, besides maybe the last stint, from what I was able to do on Grand Prix mode, just earlier the same day in fact. So that I think that was due to just my frustration from qualifying and where I was starting the grid and just overdriving and making quite a few mistakes, which you'll see later on. But as you saw there, I think the strongest part of the track for me is the last sector, as I gained a hefty amount of time in Riotoustag and the cars ahead of him in that final sector. It's RBZ's, that's 38.2 I think it is. That's a pretty nice time. As you can tell, my time is quite a bit off that, but I haven't really had a clean lap yet. And Riotus is getting a bit slow through there, so we're going to close in on him a bit. And we get a bit of understeer there, so I have to lift. If we'd been a bit closer to Riotus, because he went a bit wide, he might have had a chance coming into the first Degner here. But it's not really an overtaking Nice. Ooh, and as we just tapped the back. I think actually on from Rioto's point of view, we didn't actually touch the back of him, which is good, but I think he just caught me off guard, braking a bit earlier than I braked for that corner. Taking a bit of a tighter line into the hairpin there, which will mean he gets better traction, as you can see, but I get better corner entry. Just in case he went a bit deep, I'd be able to go up the inside, but didn't really pay off. So we go a bit too wide, spoon, try to correct the oversteer on the curbs that we got there, which is going to affect our exit once again, so we're not really going to get a move up before the final chicane. As you can see, I was a bit frustrated there with my driving, which has been pretty poor so far in this league race. We're gaining quite a bit on Riotus, and I broke a bit too early there, and let off the brake and just tapped the throttle and ended up going a bit too deep, so it wasn't the best braking zone. But again, Riotus has pulled out quite a big gap, which we're going to have to and Riotus just smacking right into the back of him. He lost the back end on the inside the apex curb, I believe, and then just joined the track again, and there was nothing I could do at that point. I was committed to the corner, so I don't think I could have done anything at that point, and yeah, it cost me my front wing. It could have cost me my front wing, which would have been a race ender really. Skipping ahead to later on in lap 4, I believe it was a 2.2 second gap to Riotus after the first sector from that collision, and now after just the remainder of the lap, right up at the back of him again. And with DRS, I should be able to catch up, as Harry D sets a pretty blistering time there on the option tyres, and he is an absolute mile ahead of everyone else in this race at the moment. Taking a wider line to cut back and getting all the way alongside him. Bit of contact there, and yeah, Riotoustag just gets a bit of a better traction. So we're going to have to try and find another overtaking opportunity. Having a look at the inside, but I have to back out of it because Riotus closes the door on us. So we're going to have to see now if we can find another way past him. Riotus going a bit wide again, seems to be doing that quite a few times. And now we make a massive mistake going into the gravel there, and then yeah, just losing a chunk of time. And now we're under pressure from Craig Senna. We will be able to hold him off going into the hairpin right here. Brake nice and late, turn it in. Craig has a look at the inside a bit, but we close the door. We're able to get good enough traction to stay ahead. Pressing later on to lap 6 now, coming into Spoon. And we've pulled out a gap to Craig, and Riotus made us a mistake at the exit of Spoon, so we're going to get a much better shoot out of Spoon than Riotus, and we'll be able to close this gap back up again. Going into the Degner, I can tell you the reason I went into the gravel is I was going to cut the corner, and I turned out of the corner to try and avoid it, and yeah, just went into the gravel. There's a very easy overtake there, as Riotus broke a lot earlier than we did, and a bit of traction problems on the exit there, which is going to be might put us under pressure, but it seems we've got a nice enough gap to Riotus right now, and he'll have DRS, so we're going to brake quite late going into this turn 1 to try and stay ahead, and that is exactly what we do. It's important now to get a nice first sector to pull a gap on Riotus really. Thinking about speed demon now, the next car up, we can close that gap and get on the back of him, so pretty nice first sector so far. So we get a bit of understeer, and we have to we turn out at the same time, oddly enough, and had to do a big lift, and Riotus has come straight up our inside, which is another unforced error from us, as we've seen it about 3 or 4 so far. You can see my frustration as I end up cutting that corner. I lift off and do a bit of a snaking, zigzagging to try and lose the amount of time I gained from doing that. So again, we're stuck behind Riotoustag, and it is lap 7, and we still haven't got any further up through the grid, and this podium is starting to get even more unlikely the more time we spend stuck behind Riotoustag, as he gets pretty unusually poor exit from Spoon. Went a bit deep, I believe, and had to do quite a lot of heavy braking. So as you can see, 1.3 seconds slower that lap, and I believe most of that was in the first sector. As again a lot in the braking on Riotoustag there, and I didn't feel like I broke any later than normal. Rice is nearly losing the back end, and we're going to get DRS here, so we should be able to make a move. Popping out from the slipstream, going along round the outside, and I think it's already a move. Going to brake quite late just to make sure that we can keep this position. Locking up the inside a tiny bit after we touch that curb, but staying ahead nicely. And again, now we need to push and try and pull out a gap in this first sector. Hopefully not making any more unforced errors like we have earlier on. And we actually made it through that corner without going wide, which is surprising. Speed Demon ahead, cutting to lap 8, and the gap is 3.1 seconds to Speed Demon. So, remember that, 3.1 seconds. We now jump into the pits, and you can see 3 cars there, who are all just ahead, so that's 5th, 4th and 3rd, I believe. So, podium might still be on the cards. I decided to jump onto the options, which is complete opposite strategy to everyone else. I think everyone went on the prime tyres at this stage. So I thought I'd go on the options, try and overtake everyone, and get in the podium position, pull out a bit of a gap on this stint, and then hold them off on the primes. That was my plan at this point. I prefer to do option prime. I find it easier just because you have heavier fuel, and it's easier to have the better tyres, in my opinion, when you have heavy fuel. And then the tyres that are slower with less grip, when you have less fuel on board, and the car is a bit easier to drive. But, you know, that's just personal preference, really. As we actually close in on speed, I think, in this first sector, I think the gap is already less than 3.1 seconds. Yep, 2.1, 1 second already, so that gap is being pulled down. Gone a bit wide there on the exit of the Degner. And I can tell you that even though I went on these fresh options, my pace was quite slow on these options, and it took me quite a long time to catch up to speed. I think I was just making a few unforced errors. Again, as we now cut to lap 10, and the gap is 1.7 seconds, I believe, to Speed Demon. So I'm just going to make sure to get a good first sector. As you can see, we're already gaining quite a large amount in this first sector, and just those corners right there. Small lift there just to not go wide. As we went a bit off the crack line, and I think we might be able to make a move on Speed Demon in just a few corners. Again, just cutting that corner. It's because I went a bit wide on the exit of the first Degner, it caused me to be offline for the second, and tried to just lift off and weave a bit to reduce the time I gained from cutting the corner. But, you know, it's still a cut, so hopefully we can keep that to a minimum in this race, as we're very close to the back of Speed. I don't really want to overtake going into Spoon right here, so I'm just going to lift off and I missed my apex there, which was a bit frustrating. But Speed's got a poor, you're going to get a poor exit because you went a bit wide. So we're just going to get in the slipstream, and I think this should be quite an easy move. But it's going to be too wide into 130R, and if you do not lift, you can't do it too wide. Speed doesn't lift there, as you can see, and just forces off the track. But, you know, just a racing incident, really. I don't think there was much in that. Apparently Codemasters thinks it was my fault, that incident, which is interesting, to say the least. And I think we've pulled out a nice enough gap to Speed to be safely ahead. Coming up to turn 1. The car ahead now is RBZ, I believe. About 3 cars here. I think RBZ, J Pierce and I Leroy, I believe, are the 3 cars ahead. So we're just going to try and get a nice first sector again to close this gap to them. And we have closed it quite a significant amount to J Pierce right here. Very good shoot through this. We just tap the back of him and then go to the left, thinking about going round the outside at the Degner 1. J Pierce backs off, lets us through. Very nice of him to do that. He said after the race he saw I was on the option tyres. He knew that I was had a pretty decent amount of pace. So if you go, if you battle side by side, both of you are going to lose time. So it'd be better for both of us, just for J Pierce to let me go. You never know, I might be able to go side by side with RBZ, and then J Pierce might be able to get in the mix and get into 4th place. as RBZ goes wide, and we're able to shoot up the inside, going a bit deep on the exit though because of taking such a tight line through this spoon. But that was a pretty easy move. We've got a nice gap, so I don't think the slipstream along this back straight is going to be enough for RBZ to close in on us. Next car up, RBZ. Leroy, and he actually had 1 lap fresher tyres than we had and managed to get ahead of Slick Bunny. And the gap between Slick Bunny and I stayed about the same, really, which was quite surprising, seeing as he was on the primes and I was on the options. But now I'm going on to the prime tyres, the slower tyres, the most important part of this race. And I'm on the primes, and everyone else, I think down to about 8th, which is everyone on the grid apparently, is going to be on the quicker option tyres. So, but the benefit is, I will now have an undercut of about 2 or 3 laps right now, because on the option stints I could do about 8 to 9 laps, and I decided to do only 8 laps because I didn't feel like I was getting a good enough pace on those options. So going on these primes, as you can see, I'm in complete fresh air, nowhere near anyone else. I can just bang out some good laps. So I need to get some nice consistent laps for these 2 or 3 laps that I'll have before everyone that I was around pits for the option tyres. And the idea was really to try and maybe even jump the guy that was in 3rd and get up to the back of Leroy. So I'm just trying to push fairly hard right now. As you can see, a couple of cars are quite far ahead right there. And just trying to push and get right up to the back of the podium positions, and maybe jump them and then just hold them off for the remainder of this stint on the primes, which will be difficult because the time difference between the 2 tyres is about a second or so, somewhere around that margin, maybe a bit less. You can see the gap to Riotoustag is about 12.5 seconds. Oh, and we miss our braking zone, as Riotoustag had, believe he'd crashed into the wall there, and he'd destroyed the 100-metre board, I believe, and I just didn't see the 100-metre board, and then realised when I saw the 50 that I'd missed my braking zone. I think I did gain a bit of time from that, but hopefully it wasn't too much. Cutting to lap 19 now. And unfortunately Slick Bunny did come out ahead of us by quite a bit, about the same gap as it was when I went into the pits, so he set some pretty good laps at the very end of his option stint. But as you see, he's lagging a bit, he's having a lag spike, he's lagged right behind us now, and you know, I've had lag in the past and I don't really think I don't like it when I overtake like that, so just thought I'd run wide a bit there and give him the place back. Of course I'm joking. Yeah, just pretty frustrating because Slick Bunny is in net 3rd place at the moment after everyone's done their pit stops. So that was an opportunity really to get ahead of Slick Bunny and then just hold him off. As we lose the back end and go off the grass there, I was actually changing the fuel mixture with my left thumb, so I couldn't steer at that point, so that's why it took me so long to correct the oversteer. But no harm done really. Slick Bunny goes a bit wide. A few people have been doing that at the exit of Spoon. I take a much tighter line, I think, at the exit of Spoon. So I think we're still in contention to keep up with Slick Bunny. That was my idea, to try and stay right up on the back of him. Just look into the inside in case he brakes a bit earlier, because I don't know where his braking point is at all. In fact, he broke at the exact same place I braked, so that means coming into that final chicane, I can be confident to brake where I'm normally brake and not rear end him. So, you know, just measuring him up, go a bit too deep there through turn 1, which is not very good, which is going to affect our run through this first sector. So we won't be carrying as much speed through these corners. Going a bit wide as we couldn't get it into 3rd there. So we just see Slick Bunny pulling away a little bit in this first sector, going a bit wide again, which is going to affect our run through this corner. And I think the cut into lap 26 now. I believe in those few laps we just missed, the gap stayed about a second. I stayed within DRS. I think the closest I got was about 4/10 behind him, but nothing came of it. I believe I made another mistake and dropped back to about 1.1 seconds before, as you see now on lap 26, closing in quite nicely in this first sector, getting quite a good first sector here, as I then run absolutely wide, which I've done quite a few times in that corner, which is not good at all. And with a bit of dirt and grass on the tyres, I've gone a bit too deep here, so losing even more time. As you can see, I've lost a bit over 6/10, and the gap to Slip Bunny is 1.1 seconds. So I would have been only about 4, if not less, tenths behind Slip Bunny at this point. So I could have been challenging for third right now, but I think at this point I'm thinking more about keeping ahead of RBZ and making sure to keep hold of this 4th place after starting 12th on the grid. It's not really a bad finish, not a bad position to finish in. So at this point I'm thinking Slip Bunny has ran away with this. Cutting to the final lap now, lap 27, as we're coming in towards Spoon. As you can see, Harry D has already finished, and that is the massive gap that he had of over 30 seconds from where we are at the moment. Considering our race, I don't think that gap is actually too bad from how bad our first and second stints were. And our pace has not been really there for this entire race, so congrats to Harry D for that. As we hear that Slip Bunny has ran out of fuel, so we're pushing really hard through this final chicane. Will we be able to get there? I think he's got enough in hand just to be able to cross the line ahead of us. Looking at some lap times now, we came in 4th, so the final stint was pretty consistent, around the 38s most of the way through, but it's still about a second off where I was normally at for my practices on Grand Prix mode. There we got 4th place with Harry Dean in first after he got his pole position, a massive amount ahead of everyone, Leroy, Slip Bunny, and then myself. And now the league table, which I'm currently in 9th place after a terrible season, but it's still up for grabs. It's 6th place. It's pretty close between all of us. But you can follow me on Twitter or subscribe on YouTube if you want to see more F1 2014 content. And as always, thanks for watching.